to yet another episode of Smash the Bug. I'm your host, Joseph Maxwell. I bring to you today a very special guest, a solid developer. Actually, well, he's a architect at Blue Acorn, so he knows a thing or two about development. Before we jump into this and I make an official introduction, make sure that you have subscribed to our YouTube channel, Swift Otter Inc. The next thing is, if you want, you can also subscribe to our podcast, Smash the Bug, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Again, not hard to find there. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce Łukasz Bajsarowicz. He is from Poland, a super solid developer, very involved in the community, and I am looking forward to hearing what he has to tell us today about his experiences. So, welcome, Lukasz. It's a pleasure having you on, and maybe you can introduce yourself by sharing what you do at Blue Acorn.
Yeah, so I'm at the role of architect, of Magento solution architect, and I work with the great people who, just like me, worked on Mediotype, and we still do awesome stuff, but under different brands. It's Blue Acorn.
Okay.
And as an architect, I'm responsible for two major things. One is to talk with the client and understand what they need, and then turn it into design that is understood by developers. So I just translate the business language into tech language, and I make sure throughout the delivery that everything is made properly as client requested, as client needed.
Very well.
And that's my role there.
And you recently got a promotion, right?
Yes. So the beginning of the year was very special for me because I was promoted to tech lead role, and I received my two projects to lead, and that was super. And yeah,
very nice. Well, that's really good. One thing I'm always curious about is it seems like there's, I don't know, as far as how the hierarchy often goes, we got junior developer, mid developer, senior developer, and I don't know, somewhere between senior, and then there's a tech lead. Often, maybe tech lead is more advanced than a senior. Sometimes it's on the same level. It's just a different role. But then you have architect, which seems to be kind of the next step above that. Is there, and I'm sure it varies from organization to organization, but it seems like for the most part, being an architect's more or less the top of the ladder unless you wanted to step into actual people management. Is that more or less your experience?
Yes, that's something that we discussed several times before, that architect is actually the highest level. Usually it's the highest level you can get. And this way you can't go higher without stepping on the management, people management. I mean, like being responsible for the people, not the code, not the project, just people. And for me personally, it's something I don't want to do. I don't want to be responsible for the people. I love to be responsible for the project and make clients happy, not people under.
Yeah, that can be challenging. I can see it being very challenging. So, well, speaking of challenges, what was some of your, maybe we could just start with one of your biggest challenges to overcome this past year? So how did you, and again, it's not about the problem itself, it's about how you approached it, how you solved it, because we're all going to have different problems, but being able to approach it in a common methodology or understanding the steps of how to approach it can just make a world of difference between success at solving this problem or failure at not being able to solve the problem.
So I wanted to mention something that's actually problems not only, although you work on a technical role, problems are not always related to the project itself. For me, it was really challenging and frustrating last year to say goodbye to so many great people from my past organization. I mean, like from Mediotype. I can honestly say that even maybe one time or two times, I even cried after them. So that was challenging. And you're asking me about the solution. So actually,
it's not really a solution.
The easiest solution. yeah, there's no
You miss
there
your
is no
you miss your
solution.
friends. That's tough.
Yeah, that's why I think that the solution is actually to build relationships with people from work outside the work and try to keep in touch with them. Then, although you don't work with them anymore, you still have contact with them.
Absolutely.
And you still can talk, and it's much easier. I mentioned that because we always talk about technical stuff, but mental health and
It is.
actually it is important. Yeah, it is important.
So let's just stop right there, because that's going to happen in almost every situation. I mean, some more than others, and it's going to vary. But what are some ways that you suggest keeping in touch with people? So you're working with people day in and day out. You really can develop close relationships. Especially as you like working with people, and and I know you worked with probably some of the sharpest dudes in the industry. Like, I mean, just razor sharp folks. And I can see, with transitions and all that stuff, I can see that being tough. So what has helped you work through that, and how do you work to keep in touch with these people as they are moving on to other places of work?
So I always make sure to exchange the LinkedIn. So actually to keep them as friends on LinkedIn. But for some of them, I have them on WhatsApp or Signal, and we exchange message. Like we drop a line once a month to keep in touch, and just to for a little chit chat.
Real quick, if I could jump in there. So you say we drop a line once a month, and I know I'm getting really specific, but what stimulates you to check in with your buddies?
So that's a really difficult question. However,
I know, but you don't have to answer it.
For me, but for me, it's not like calendar. I don't have on a calendar to build the community, to build the relationship. It's rather like, I've just seen, for example, TV series which was recorded in Colorado, for example.
Okay.
So I call my friend, like I drop a line to my friend. Hey, I just watched the video that was recorded in the national park. I've seen on Instagram you were there. So that's
cool.
Great, because it reminded me about you.
Okay. That works right there. That's great. And I was just curious. Like, I didn't know how specific you were when you said once a month. And because again, that's the challenge I have, is like time flies.
So actually it's really funny, because I'm preparing I can say there was a movie in 90s. It was Euro Trip. So for me, it's about to start my US trip.
Very nice.
To visit several places, and I shared the news on Twitter. I shared the news on company Slack. I let my friends from the US know, and I'm pretty sure that every single time when I visit any of the US cities, I'm able to actually go with them to have some lunch together. So yeah,
yes. That's the best.
I pinged them. Yeah.
Yes, and I just have to make a quick shout out. That is a super awesome shirt you're wearing there. I don't know if you can pull it down just so we can see it. Just, it says, "I'm sorry for what I said when I was debugging." That way, I love that. That's a good shirt. But anyway, sorry for that interruption there. But yeah, that's really cool. I'm sure you will enjoy said tour of the United States. And hey, if you're in our neck of the woods, it'd be fun for you to hit us up, and we'll have to do some dinner or something like that. So you'll catch up there. That's great.
Yeah, I'd love to try your Kentucky grill. It sounds amazing.
Yes, that will be fun. We'll have to do that. Yes. So, anyways, this whole conversation about call it disappointment. Honestly, like disappointment. I don't know if it's correct to say broken relationships, because it's not. It's just like keeping in touch with coworkers, because that community that bond is so strong, and yet it does take that intentionality to continue that resolve, to continue those relationships. And so that was a a good challenge. And so thank you for doing that. So that was the first challenge. Do you have another challenge we want to talk about?
Yes, of course. Of course, we are here for the meaty parts, not just chit chat about the emotions. So yeah, from technical standpoint, to the biggest challenge this year was the fact that I started 2 projects at the same time as a tech lead, and it was super difficult to share the time between them, because you can guess that the project starts, you have to put all your attention on the project, then it gets a little bit lower, so it's predictable. And then again, you are preparing for go live, and again, you need to focus 100%. And unfortunately, for these 2 projects, the time frames were quite close to each other.
Okay.
As a result, I wasn't able to focus like 100% on each project. So I gave like 75% with doing 50% of our hours to catch up with everything.
That's tough.
And yes, that was tough. So the lesson I learned from that is that always review the offers that you get before you agree to actually do it. I was so greedy for the success. Like, oh, I was promoted to the tech lead role, so now I can do everything I want. No, you can't, and
That's right.
you need to always check if you are capable of doing all the stuff. So that was the tightest part this year from technical standpoint, because I wasn't able to make it.
I remember.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you're into American football, which is obviously very different than European football. But in the Super Bowl this past year, where like the 2 best teams duke it out, there was one on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their quarterback, like their head peep there on their team, his name is Tom Brady, and he's like one of the oldest quarterbacks in football history. And he beat this 26-year-old, 26, 27, somewhere in there, Patrick Mahomes, who's actually from Kansas City. And what stood out to me in that just watching that happen, here's this young, sharp guy, mid-20s, like as far as genetics go, like the best genetics ever. And he's won so many games, and like he'd already beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers already that year. And yet Tom Brady won. And what came back to me, and it seems like for Tom Brady, he's old. I mean, old, and put that in quotes, and comparatively he's old, but he knows his limitations. He knows how to say no, what he can do, what he cannot do. And I think that's the lesson that I struggle with, because I'm like you, I want to do it all. There's opportunity galore. Like there is opportunity everywhere I look. And yet I have to say, no, I can't do it all. And so then it comes back to prioritization. And that's a lesson I am deep in the trenches of learning, but I'm becoming more passionate about this. We have to have the ability to say no, or we learn from it, and we do better to say no next time, or ask for adjustments or changes, and we have more control than we think we do. And it's just a matter of learning how to leverage that.
So it doesn't matter how good you are in resolving Sudokus, but if you are asked to resolve 2 Sudokus at the same time with one round here, one round there, you can't make it. You can't make it.
Nope. 100% right. That's a great example.
And technically, also, I had many discussions with Magento architects at the very beginning of the year, because one of the projects was very special. It was more than 10 million products.
That's a lot.
10 million. Yeah, that's a lot. And I was said by by Adobe architects currently, that Magento should handle that without any further issues. And I checked that briefly with just test data. I have seen some obstacles, but the technical challenge I had wasn't the storefront, wasn't the sales process integrations and so forth and so on. The challenge was actually admin dashboard for Magento, because
Really?
it's completely unprepared for such a huge volume of data. And I spent like 3 months out of 9 just on adjusting the configuration and making improvements to Magento grids to make sure that everything works as it should. And I know that you love to hear technical details, how I debugged this, how I found out what's wrong in the grid. So I'm stealing the show. Sorry.
No, please. This is why we have you on. I mean, it's not every day I get to have somebody on that's dealt with over 10 million products in a store. That's a significant number.
So I started with actually breaking down a system into small pieces. Of course, New Relic and Blackfire were my best friends during that time. So I checked which exactly queries are problematic on the admin dashboard, and I took them off the system. I just used them clearly on the CLI to check how they perform without all the Magento application itself.
Okay.
And I realized that, okay, the problem is not application, the problem is query. And I started to break down the query into small pieces to find out what we can do about it. I mean, like I took the query and I found out, okay, this joint cannot be there. So how we can resolve that other way. And I started to optimize the query. There were some, I don't remember the names. However, there were some online tools that are not too expensive, but you put the metadata of your database. You put your query there, and you ask the AI to optimize the query.
Interesting. I did not know that it exists.
Yeah, I was like, someone on Twitter helped me with that, and it was awesome, like literally awesome.
Do you remember the name of that tool? And can you share it?
After the podcast, after the recording, I will share the link. So
please, and we'll put it in the show notes then.
Yes, definitely, and it would be helpful. So the results were really great.
Yeah.
However, we need to remember that Magento uses its own collections, its own queries. So we had to trim off some of the features of Magento to actually use these custom queries. So, for example, we replaced some of the data providers for admin grids with our own trimmed ones.
Okay.
But definitely the query, like the difference between the query that runs for 6 minutes and the query that runs for 6 seconds, it's a huge difference. So we did it, but debugging was really hard, like was really difficult because you had to extract every single part of the application separately and consider it separately, like what we can do for the code, what we can do for database, and if we can do any caching inside.
Wow. Yeah, that would be definitely tricky then. And so when you say admin dashboard, I think of the first page most people see when they go into the Magento 2 admin. It has a little grid to show exactly your sales statistics, and then I think you're talking about all, say, product grids or grids related to products in the Magento admin.
Yes. By admin dashboard, because it's hard to say backend, because people understand backend as a code,
yes,
as application layer. So
Okay.
I try to find the proper word for admin panel, admin dashboard, however we call it. And
Okay.
yes, I am referring to products grid, but I didn't have to wait too long for another challenge. But this time it was related to 12 million products. 12 million orders on the other project. That was a migration from Magento 1.
Wow.
And then I was prepared. So actually, I used the same way I used for the first issue. But this time it was much easier because for orders, Magento 2 has some extra table, flat table prepared to serve the orders. So we optimized it a little bit. We disabled some of the features that were not used by the client, and it is definitely faster.
Okay. Well, very good. That's awesome. I love hearing about that because that would be a definite trick. It's a little unfortunate that you won't be able to like include that back into the Magento core code. Maybe you can. That'd be cool if you could, because getting performance in that way. But I'm sure there was a lot. If it took you 3 months, that's a ton of effort to get that done. And so definitely kudos to you. Hats off there in being able to pull that across the finish line.
So to wrap up, what I can say, when you're delivering the Magento project, don't just look at the storefront because, storefront is used by the final customer, but still the application needs to be usable, and it cannot frustrate your client who has to maintain that store. So monitor, for example, with New Relic, not only the storefront, but also the admin panel, and just remove the bottlenecks there to make sure that they are not getting frustrated every single time when they need to modify a single product.
Yes, absolutely. That's good. Well, let's move into our second phase of this. What are you doing to improve your skills? Like, clearly, I don't know what you started out with Mediotype as, what your official title was, but clearly you stepped up through the ranks. So that means you're doing something to improve your capabilities, your skill set as a developer. Maybe it's just projects. I don't know. So maybe you can talk to me about how you are taking these steps to improving your career.
So, to be honest, before I joined Mediotype, I was playing a lot with Magento core contribution. And at the very beginning, it was really tough experience because you spend hours or days on doing something, and the feedback was always wrong. But if you are good at strategic games, you don't give up. So I used to play StarCraft a lot, and that's why I learned to move my base to different place and start all over again. So when I failed with one contribution at one place, I tried to improve another one, and I finally sorted out what I should do to be successful, and the feedback was better and better. I learned a lot from people there. So if you want to understand how Magento works, and if you want to improve your skills, contribution is a perfect sandbox to play with it. And that's my first recommendation. That's how I boosted my skills a lot.
Very good. Yeah, I know. Well, we don't have to necessarily get into it now, but there's a whole bunch of like the whole Magento contribution process and that kind of thing. And I think that would be actually interesting. Actually, we need to do another podcast, you and I, about core contributions and that process, and what is it like, how to do some of that stuff, because I think there's a lot that we can learn from it, even if we don't actually contribute to the core. Like, what have you learned from being a really, I think, as successful as somebody could ever be with core contributions? Yeah,
so I'd love to discuss that with you during another podcast. Definitely something that helps you in a smaller piece. I mean, when you want to learn or polish your skills in PHP itself, I find platforms like CodeWars like perfect place to not only improve your PHP skills, but also learn the tricky parts of PHP. So when you check the best practices section after resolving the task, you find out that there are functions you'd never think of in PHP to resolve the common issues.
That's great.
So so I strongly recommend registering to one of these pages like CodeWars, and just do a little, like 7 minutes, 11 minutes task a day, and then you'll find out huge improvement in your skills.
That's good. Yeah, 10 minutes, whatever a day. That's going to represent significant improvements over the course of a year. You know, I mean, what might seem difficult, like a difficult challenge starting into it, give it a year, and you'll and if you were to be presented with a similar but different challenge, you'd be like, dude, that's easy. Like, that's not a problem at all. And as a result of that continued investment, I think any one of us could probably drum up 7 to 10 minutes a day. Like, we have 7 to 10 minutes that we probably waste in one way or another. And by repurposing that into CodeWars, I think it's a phenomenal way to grow.
Even when you're commuting, 7 minutes on PC, it can be like 15 minutes on your mobile, because writing code on mobile isn't.
That'd be tough.
That
would be tough.
That is tough. But if you still have 20 minutes of commuting to your office, it's definitely time to improve your skills. And if you don't want to code on your mobile phone, there is still Anki app. It's like you have a set of new lessons every single day, and quizzes that confirm your just challenge your knowledge from this specific day. And it's also something I used to do, but currently I'm not commuting to the office. I work. I wake up, I brush my teeth, and I sit next to my desk. So that's my commuting.
Yeah, which ultimately that's probably another topic we could talk about is, because there's a lot of people do have I think in some ways it's a benefit of the commuting time. Like, you can think, you can prepare, you can learn. There's a lot of value in that. I know Max Chadwick, he wrote tons and tons and tons of blog articles when he was commuting, and just the value out of that is phenomenal. So, but then again, it's also really nice just working from home. You go up downstairs, you work next to your bed, whatever, like wherever it is, the commute becomes pretty easy. But then it takes a little more discipline, I think, in that way, to say, okay, I am going to take 10 minutes and run through one of these katas here and see how I can do with that.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I have last one.
Please. Yeah.
It's not the least important. However, once upon a time, I heard the sentence that you learn the most by teaching the others.
Absolutely.
And I find it so accurate, because I started to give training sessions for different companies across the Poland. Then my offer got to Scotland,
nice.
Then to Ukraine, and now I'm traveling across the Europe, training people, training different companies. And before sharing the knowledge with others, you need to verify very thoroughly what you want to share, and what is what changed from version to version. For example, I was giving the most I was doing the most of the trainings between Magento 2.3 and 2.4. So I had to teach people what is the difference. Like this is the pain point in 2.3, but it has changed till 2.4. So I had to prepare for that. And then I learned the most of my current knowledge, because I had to prepare. So that was booster. And I encourage everyone who knows Magento a little bit more to start even local training sessions for free, or start your own let's say, a little lesson weekly, 15 minutes knowledge sharing across your company. That works a lot.
That's great. Absolutely. Yeah, I understand training is like the pinnacle of knowledge, and being able to share it, and it helps refine it for me. It helps, as I do training, but it also, educates and helps. It passes this value on to other people. So it's a win-win situation. It takes some time, of course, but like those monthly trainings that I do, I love them so much. And honestly, it's going to sound really bad to say, but even if nobody gets any value out of them, which I get great feedback out of them, which makes me happy, but even if nobody got any value out of them, I get a ton of value out of it, just because it forces me to dive into the subject, to regurgitate it, to think about it, to put it together into slides and code demonstrations, and then to be able to talk about it. And it always tests my knowledge. It tests my limits, and every one of those is great. But it's really good to be able just to get out there, to share, and help your self-esteem. To be able to just talk and be able to educate others with stuff that we're passionate about. So
I can agree with the self-esteem, and that was something I mentioned to my girlfriend several times, because when I was giving training to different companies, I felt so fulfilled. And when COVID started, I felt so down because I couldn't share my knowledge, and it was maybe I'm a little bit stubborn, but there was no one to actually listen to me when I share something. So that was really making me down.
Sure, it's good that to be able to share the knowledge is good, and it's absolutely incredible. Lukasz, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I wish you the best. And it'd be really cool if we could we've met in person before. That was Meet Magento last year, but 2019.
That was Magento Live Europe, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yep. 2019.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's very good. So it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you, and definitely wish you the best in your endeavors, your projects, everything that you're working on.
Try your barbecue.
Yes, we will do that. That is a promise. Very good. As long as you can make it to Kansas City, we'll do it. Well, what an absolute pleasure it was having Lukasz on. I mean, he is a really solid guy, as you can tell. Great experience, and a person who deeply cares about the work he does and those that he works with. And I think we all can learn from that. If we, at the end of the day, we can write great code, and we should be writing great code, but it's those relationships that are so critical. And Lukasz has his priorities right. So lots to learn from this. I hope you found it beneficial, and I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast.